welcome to another CRaFTi experiments video. So this is technically a part 2 to the experiment video playing with embossing powders and the LOKLiK mini heat press. We did a bunch of different experiments playing with all sorts of different embossing powders, creating these standalone puddles that you can die cut. You can iron them with the mini heat press back onto pieces of card. You can go straight onto the card and embed different pieces into them. And we did a whole host of different designs using all sorts of different experimental kind of methods, but I still didn't get a chance to finish all the things I wanted to do, and then I suddenly thought of this as well. So this is an art journal page that I have been in the middle of making for I don't know how long, because I keep wanting to film a sped up video showing you how I created this card, and then I was probably going to do some kind of show at the end of this journal page and that was done with the same kind of technique as well. But this kind of technique, I saw Joggles donkeys years ago doing this thing that she called resin paper, and when she had excess resin left over from her projects, she sort of like saturated, it was actually the Tim Holtz tissue paper, you know, the melange, I can't remember how you say it, that really long like roll of it with like all of the butterflies and things on it, that lovely paper, and she did it with that, and in my brain I thought she had done that with triple thick clear embossing powders. So that's kind of this technique. It's using clear triple thick embossing powder onto tissue paper that you've stamped something onto, and this was when these stamps came out from Andy Skinner and Creative Expressions, and I made this card and I really liked it, so I made myself another one as well, but I still haven't done it as a video. But the way I did this was I stamped onto the tissue first. This is just generic tissue paper that you can get in packaging and stuff. And then I painted on the back of it. I haven't actually got one with painting on to try, but I just wanted to see if this method would work with the LOKLiK mini heat press, because I think it's going to be less messy than it was just using the heat tool to do this. So I'm going to do it with another one of these circles again. But I had the tissue paper, I then stamped on it with the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, let it dry, and then you can paint on the back of it using acrylic paints. I did find acrylic paints were better, and actually I didn't actually paint on the back of this one. I did leave this one clear and I painted a circle in the background, but you can paint onto the back of the tissue as well, and I did that with some Dina Wakley neon paints for a Francoise release. And I did this same method for it ages ago as well, and it worked really nicely too. So you can add your colour to the back, or you can leave it clear like I somehow did for this one, and I didn't think I had, but I did. And then what we're going to do after this is, well, how I was doing it is I was covering this with my clear sticky ink pad, so taking my little mini ink pad, pouncing it all over it, adding a mixture of ultra thick and a fine grade clear embossing powder to kind of fill in the pitted sort of effect that you get with ultra thick. Plus I was also heating it and then using one of the tonic spatulas whilst the powder was still molten to try and spread it evenly across the surface, and then I kind of let it cool down, and it was like this really cool crispy translucent kind of version of this. And the way I just attached it to this card was just with the Tim Holtz tiny attacher, which I think looks really cool when you add the little staples onto there. And then I'd done a tree version of this where I had painted behind it with some of Andy Skinner's matte chalk paints. And then once I had heat embossed this one, I scrunched it up, and then I thought, how am I going to attach this into an art journal? Because if I use chunky staples, it's going to like impede on the next page. So I actually took a piece of white card, covered it in double-sided adhesive, and then pressed it onto there. So you kept the crackly texture, but it's actually all completely stuck down, because in some places, because it's just tissue paper, the crackles had like gone all the way through and made a hole, but when you stick it onto the double-sided adhesive, it holds it all back together again. So we're not actually going to go through the whole process. The main thing of this experiment, sorry, I've gone through quite a ramble on this, but the main thing for this experiment maybe I'll go with the trees because it's bigger actually to show you. I just want to see, can I do this like resin paper that's not with resin, it's with embossing powder. Can I do this with the LOKLiK mini heat press to melt the powder rather than having to use a sticky ink pad and a heat tool and trying to spread it out with a spatula and everything? Is it going to be easier to use the LOKLiK mini heat press? So that is what this first experiment is going to be. It's literally going to be me putting this in between some baking parchment, which if you didn't watch the first video, this is just cheap greaseproof paper, baking parchment, whatever you tend to call it, that I got from Home Bargain. So it's just a really, really cheap one. I think it was less than £1 or only £1.19 or something ridiculous like that. And then what I'm going to do is take some ultra thick embossing powder in clear. This is just decanted from this giant pot. I tend to like to have a small one on my desk for techniques like this. And we're just going to sprinkle this over the top of our piece of tissue paper with our stamped image on. I'm just going to get a decent sort of layer of this over the top. And I'm going to come back in with some fine grade clear as well to sort of fill in the areas that maybe the larger granules don't quite cover. So this is just a fine detailed clear one that I always keep on my desk. Again, I've decanted it from a bigger pot. And just sprinkle a bit of that over as well, because this is how I did the original one. I think I did a layer of normal clear, then I did ultra thick, and then I did another layer of normal clear just to kind of even it out again. So let us see if this will work. We need to turn this on first, and we know from the first video that number 1, which is 140 degrees, is sufficient enough temperature to melt your embossing powder, which is brilliant, that you only need it on the lowest setting. And I'm working on a silicone mat just because it absorbs heat and is going to stop it, you know, really heating up my glass Tim Holtz mat underneath. And that means it's ready. This silicone mat is just one that I got from IKEA. It's for baking. It's got like these sort of macaroni kind of guides on the other side to bake onto. And also we're using the LOKLiK mini heat press to apply our heat onto here and pressure as well. And if you want to get your hands on one of these, you can get the HTVRONT branded version from their website. If you use the links below the video, they are affiliate links, so I will get a small commission at no extra cost to you. And if you use the code Christine Smith, which is CRaFTi, I'll put it here on the screen and also in the description box below as well, you can get 10% off your order. Whether that is for this little mini machine, whether you want to get the cutting machine that I've shown in videos before as well, whether you want to just stock up on vinyl, different bits and pieces, for creating all sorts of different projects, then you can use that code to get 10% off anything on their website. I just thought I'd mention that now in case I forget to say it later on. But we're just going to press down on top of the parchment paper. I've got a piece underneath and I've got a piece on top, so it's a folded piece. And hopefully this will just evenly melt all of that clear embossing powder, and it will make it a really easy way to kind of create this resin kind of paper. It does look like the resin paper that I saw Joggles making. This was like 10 years ago, hence why my memory couldn't remember that it was resin paper. And then I was so annoyed that I couldn't remember how she had done it, that I was searching through all of her videos to try and find the one where she had created it, and then I found out that it was resin, not triple thick embossing powder. So no wonder anything I was searching for did not find the video that I was looking for. But I still think this is a really cool technique, and I think it's a really good one to use as well, especially with tissue paper, because it gives it that translucency or transparency. And you could even use this as your acetate on a shaker card as well. So that has pretty much worked so far, but we've still got a lot of the clear powder on there. So I'm actually going to turn this round and I'm going to put that back down, so now the back side is on that puddle that we just had from the front side of the tissue paper. And then I'm going to sprinkle a bit more of the ultra thick onto here, just so that we're going to get a really nice coating onto this. And again, as we found out in part 1, the baking parchment is going to give a matte finish to our project that we're working on, but obviously for this case we definitely want it to be shiny because it's kind of giving like a resin sort of look, and to get that shine back again, all you need to do is bring your heat tool to it and just waft it over the top, and it will remelt that very surface layer and make it all shiny again. So let's just melt this, because basically with this you kind of want the embossing powder to be all the way through the front and the back of it, because then it kind of gives that really translucent or transparent kind of effect to it, which means that you can use it as an acetate in your projects as well. This was going to be a tutorial, this kind of video. I don't know if I did intend to do that as a sped up video or whether it was going to be a full-on tutorial, but I feel like it's quite a good experimental video, playing with the mini heat press to see if it works as well. But I think it is going to work, and I think this is much easier and less messy than the other way, because the other way I was using my heat tool to try and melt that powder, and as you know, if you put your heat tool near ultra thick, even if you've used sticky ink, a lot of the time some of the crystals still fly off anyway. So as you can imagine, all of the pen pots and things that I have in front of me on my desk, we're getting covered in little granules of clear embossing powder. So I think this is definitely a much easier and quicker way to create this effect. And you can really see how translucent it's gone in the centre. So it's pretty much turned into the same acetate kind of effect that I had created before. Obviously that side looks matte because the powder was against the baking paper. I think possibly we need it a little bit more in some of these corner areas, so we can add a little bit more ultra thick. I just have a lot of clear ultra thick because I like to play with it for different techniques, so I'm going with the ultra thick rather than the fine powder, just to you know, add a little bit more to this. But if you only have fine powder, you can definitely just use your fine clear powder as well. And I thought that this is actually, because in the previous part of this experiment I was going through all sorts of different colours that I have, with the embossing glazes, the tonic powders, the cosmic shimmer powders, you know, really showing you all sorts of different powders. I kind of thought I need to have an option in here as well, for those of you who just have clear, because a lot of the time when you're starting out, clear is the best colour to get, because you can stamp in black, heat embossing clear over the top, and you get the illusion that you use black embossing powder. So clear is sort of like a staple if you're starting out with embossing. So you know, if you are one of those beginners that only really has clear in your stash, then you can give this a try for a cool technique as well. So we put a bit more of that on there. Let's melt this as well. And then I think we'll finish it off with the heat tool to try and spread the powder to those final areas. You can see why when I did this originally I was using the Nouveau Media spatulas to kind of spread the powder to those final bits that I wasn't quite reaching, or it was like puddling in a different area or something. But I just think this gives such a cool look, and you can do it with anything. It doesn't have to be Andy Skinner stamps, obviously. I've done it with Francois stamps before. I did it with her, I think it was called Fragments. It was in one of her sort of, was it in the Mon Jardin collection? I'm not sure now. It was in one of her vintagey kind of collections, but it worked really, really nicely using those neon colours behind it as well. If I can find a picture of the card, I'll put it on screen. So heat all over, and then lift it off quickly. We have still got some excess clear on there, so you could technically use this for another project and keep doing this loads of times to get all of your images done as well. But we're going to go with our heat tool and get the last little bits. Okay, so the front side is completely shiny now, but we now have the back side where I think it has gone mostly translucent, but I think we do need to kind of like heat it in a couple of areas. So I'm going to have to do this in midair because we don't want it sticking back down to the parchment and then cooling down, because then it'll go matte again. So I think that has worked pretty well, and you could see before how this spatula is like invaluable for kind of spreading out molten embossing powder, but I think that has worked really nicely, and that is way less messy than heating your ultra thick with your heat tool, because it just blows it everywhere. Even if you're using the other heat tool, the Ranger one, that's more gentle with its fan, it still blows it everywhere. But that, I think that maybe works even better than the other method, so I'm very glad that I thought to try that out. That's really cool. Okay, so that was a complete success, and I'll probably keep this piece of parchment for doing this kind of thing in, because you end up with some clear on here. You could peel this off if you wanted to and use this, you know, as whatever you want to really, and you've got the excess pieces from your silicone spatula as well. That's the great thing about silicone, is any embossing powder and stuff just peels straight off of it, which is really good. So I'm going to keep that to one side because I'll probably reuse that. And then the other thing that I wanted to do in this video, I do have a little bit of excess on here, but the other thing I wanted to show in this video is I said in the first part, I really wanted to play around with this Seth Apter set of powders. It's actually one of the quad sets. I only bought this really recently, and it's got concrete, asphalt, brick and granite in it, and I love putting embossing powder onto chipboard shapes like these ones here, but this was done with my pancake maker, which is the different method that I always use to do this kind of thing with. So if you want an experimental video on my pancake maker, I'm sure I will be doing one because I really want to play with it again. And I did like these ones with diamonds, and this was my moon technique. If you saw, I think it was CRaFTi Advent from 2022, where I did like a heat embossed moon, and that was using the pancake maker, and it was like this that I did it. It's the same method and mixture of embossing powders. And then these look fantastic too. I think this was a Spellbinders die that had this leaf in it. It's one of those big deep dies, and these are little wooden embellishments as well, and they just look fantastic. And that was sprinkling in some holographic glitter bits into it whilst it was molten too. And I really do love using the pancake maker because it melts it from underneath, so it gives it a different result. But I want to try using the LOKLiK mini heat press to kind of achieve similar results as well, see if we can anyway. So I love doing that kind of thing, and we're going to experiment with a little bit of that. So I've got a few different bits and pieces. This was cut with a Spellbinders die. It's a big alphabet die that I've got, and it's got numbers in it as well. And this is just regular grey board. This is one of Jamie Rogers' new MDF shapes. They're really, really reasonable. I think it was like £2.49 or something, and you've got a bunch of these different hearts in there in different sizes. So I want to try that. This was a tag and a heart that I'd got from Julia Watts. She was having a clear out quite a while ago now, and she was doing like a giveaway on her Facebook page, and I ended up getting the bundle that had loads of grey board and bits and pieces in. I think this could be a Creative Expressions Pop-'em, and then this was a little tag as well, so we can play around with this. Plus, when I was playing with my pancake maker before, I found a lot of the time you wanted a white base, but the methods I was trying to colour my grey board, which is the tonic one that I was using, with white, it was just making it curl, and then the powder was dripping off or puddling in different places because the base piece wasn't flat. So I bought some of this off of, I think it was eBay, could have been Amazon. This is a bit thicker actually, this grey board, but it's got white on one side. So I thought we could try this just to create a random shape as well. If I just cut I want to use these on a card for somebody who's watching, and they'll probably know it's for them from the numbers. But I want to use, I don't know if I'm going to use the heart as well, but I want to use those on there. So I'm just thinking of a wacky, random, quadrilaterally kind of shape, I think would look really good. So these tonic scissors are great for cutting thick things like this. So I'm just going to do that kind of a shape, I think. I don't know whether we're going to get through all of these, but the one that I really wanted to do was to create a concrete heart. I don't know why, I just thought it would be cool. So I want to use the CRaFTi concrete powder onto this wooden heart. I have used wood pieces on my pancake maker before, as you saw those tiny little leaves, and they work really well. So I'm presuming it will work well for this too. I'm going to work on a little pad of paper, and I'm also going to put a little piece of the parchment underneath as well. I know it's going to make it a little bit harder to see the heart, but I'm not sure when you're using something with that's like an iron with pressure on it as well. I'm not sure if it's going to splodge over the edges, you know, and I think it's going to be better to catch it onto this, because then I could pick it off and remelt it and use it again, rather than it sticking to a piece of waste scrap paper. So what I want to do for this is, obviously I do not want to waste this powder, because it looks really cool and I haven't used it yet, and I want to use it on lots of other projects as well. It doesn't actually require that much when you do these things, but I always think it's better to make things go further when you can. So I'm going to start with clear rather than white, because we found out in the last experimental video with embossing powders in the LOKLiK mini heat press that when you put white even underneath other colours, it can rise to the top and then turn everything pastel kind of tones. So I'm going to go with clear as my base kind of colour, and I don't think it's going to matter in this instance that our wood is brown, because we're going on top with a grey, and I'm presuming, yeah, it's gone O, so it's opaque, so we're not going to see the brown through it, which is nice. So I'm going to zoom you in a bit further, and then let's put some of this on. Where's my little Nouveau spoon? So I don't want to put too much on, but I want to put enough on. So I think I'm going to go with a little bit first. I'm just going to do 1 spoonful first. Then we'll get that melted and the whole thing covered, and then we'll go in with a bit more. So I'm going to need another little piece of baking paper. Cut this into a bit that's the right kind of size for the heart. And then we can turn this on to the first setting. And now it's heated up, we can melt this. Oh, that does melt quite quickly. It's already wiggling around on the surface, so I do think it is going to squidge over the edges, which will be nice because it will make the edges look a bit more finished if they've got the powder going over the edges, I think, unless it just makes it look really messy. But I'm hoping it will make it look more like finished because it's sort of dripping down the edges. And hopefully it's actually going to stay on there and it's not going to like just pull off onto the paper. Okay, so it really has dripped over the edges. Don't know if that was quite what I was hoping would happen. That is a cool concrete kind of colour though. But maybe it looks more concrete when you've heated it rather than melted it and it's mixed it all together. So in that case, I think for this finish of a powder it's actually going to be better to sprinkle it on and heat it with the heat tool rather than using the mini heat press with it. So I'm just going to even this out and smooth this down so that we can do that later on. So I don't think that these CRaFTi ones are going to work for this effect using the LOKLiK mini heat press, but they're still going to work, just not for the way that I had intended on using them. Is this going to be the best way to do this? Maybe I'm just going to melt this off with the heat tool. Hello, pumpkin. Do you need the toilet? Wait a second. Okay, so I think we're going to leave that for now, and I'm going to come back to this later in the video, and we're going to do the technique with the heat tool, because I also want to do that for those numbers and possibly the other heart as well. But what I do want to do now then, because this first bit of the video I wanted to use the LOKLiK mini heat press again, just to give you another idea of how to use it, and I thought instead of working straight onto our cards like we were doing last time, like this, working straight onto the card, I thought if we work onto this like grey board that's got the white on the front, it's kind of like working onto your card, but then you've kind of got a topper, so if you don't like messy edges, you've got a, you know, a specific shaped topper, and if it doesn't quite go to the edges you can always trim it down again, and hopefully it won't warp, we won't have the cracking problem. So we could go a little bit thicker and embed different bits and pieces into this as well. So this is for my mum, and her favourite colour is yellow, so I'm going to go with lots of different yellow things and gold things for this, and I'm going to, I think we're going to go with this tropic yellow. I've got Olympic gold, I've got just this beautiful gold here. I might use a little bit of the ice white from before as well. I've also got fossilised amber, and what was this colour? Oh, that's tropic red. I feel like it probably needs something else in there. We've got this Vegas gold from WoW as well that came with those silver glass chips. I don't know if I want to put this silver glass in here too. I think we might embed some bits into this, but this is going to be the background for her birthday card, I think, and then I'm probably going to put the numbers on there somehow too. So I'm not sure how this is going to go, and I'm not going to do the finished card in this video. It's just going to be little elements that I'm going to use to make her card, I think. So let's go with a bit of the ice white first. I might have a tonic yellow embossing powder actually. Okay, let's go ice white first, and this is going to squish off the edges, and I do not mind that at all, because I think it's going to give it a lovely enamelled kind of look, you know, like a proper little tile with it going off the edges. But if you did want to make it smaller afterwards, you can easily just cut it and have the raw edges again as well. I'm just going to look for a yellow tonic embossing powder, and it's always the last tray that you look in that has the yellow ones, or the ones you're looking for. Okay, so I have found Happy Days and Golden Sunflower, so I'm going to use a bit of each of these. I like using the tonic ones as well, because they just give some of their colours have got a mica in, but quite a few of them are just a matte kind of colour, and some of them do have white in them, so again, be a little bit wary of that. But we've already started with the white and clear mixture, so we're going to have that white coming into it anyway, so you know, we're kind of living on the edge with having white in there, but we can always add more on top and cover things up, so there is no wrong kind of result that we're going to get from this. We're just creating a cool, fun background for a birthday card. And then we're going to go with some of the fossilised amber in the Distress Embossing Glazes. I have used this before, I just put that protective bit back on top again. And these are very translucent powders, so even though those two colours, the sunflowery one and this one, look very similar, they're going to melt differently, because I think pretty much all of Tonic's ones are opaque from what I remember when I've been using them, but that one is translucent. The Tim Holtz ones are translucent, and then this one, the Tropic Yellow from Cosmic Shimmer, has got mica in it, which is really pretty. I love all of their ones with mica in, because they're often a different colour to the actual powder, so sometimes you can get surprise results from them, but they always look beautiful. And then I've got Olympic Gold. We are going quite heavy with this powder. As I said before, we're working on the grey board, so it can actually withstand more powder, I think, I'm hoping. And it shouldn't, well, hopefully shouldn't bow too much, so we shouldn't get the cracking. We might do, but I'm hoping that we don't. Oh. Have I used this gold one yet? I don't know if I have used the gold one. So maybe this was still brand new from the charity shop. These are the ones my mum got me from a charity shop. She found them, they were £1.50 each for this massive tub. Even though this is a very old branded tub, they still seem to work fine. They were working really nicely in the previous video. You're right, pumpkin. Okay, so now we've got all of that powder on there. Let's turn our mini heat press onto setting number 1, and then we've got our piece of parchment. I'm going to go bigger on this, I think, because it's going to squidge out over the edges. I'm going to go a bigger piece of parchment. Careful, Pump. You good? Yes? Good girl. Right, and then we're just going to heat this. Okay, so I think that has melted it all. It has gone very white, like I was kind of expecting it to. Are you okay? What's the matter? That looks really pretty though, on the piece that's come off. I might even wait for that to cool, peel it off and put it on there, and then we can sprinkle a few more powders on and then heat it again. So this is going to be a very experimental kind of little background piece, this. So, that looks really nice. Yeah, I think I'm just going to put that back on top and put this over here. And it was this gold that was making that beautiful like striation through there. Are you okay? What's the matter? What's the matter, pumpkin? So I think those two tonic ones both had quite a lot of white in there to give them the yellow colour, which I think is why it's gone so pale. So hopefully this will give it some more colour. I think the trouble is as well, if we're using this mini heat press rather than the pancake maker that heats it from underneath, you're getting different results because you're applying pressure, so you're like squashing it out, whereas when you're heating it from underneath you can put loads and loads of powder on there and it's all going to stay on there because the heat's coming from underneath and there's no pressure being applied on top of it. Okay, and I think what I'm going to do this time is leave that to cool and then we'll peel it off and use the heat tool to make it shiny again. Okay, I think that's probably cool. There we go. So, it does look kind of nice as it is actually. But I do think I want it to be shiny. I do really like the shiny look of it. And let's bring you in as close as I can. I'm going to be looking at it rather than looking up at the camera, so hopefully my heat tool's not blocking it as it's going shiny, but hopefully you'll be able to see. I even quite like the blobby shape that it's created around the edges as well. I think I might also, where's it gone? Here. Put a little bit, sprinkle a little bit more of the tropic yellow in whilst that's still a little bit warm and try and heat that into it as well. I think I took too long looking for it then. Let's see if this just blows it all away. I like that, it's given like a speckly effect. Let's try and do that with this gold as well. There we go, that looks really cool. Oh, I like that a lot. That looks really good. Okay, so that's going to be the cool kind of background. And then maybe these just in gold to go over the top. Or would one of these work? Brick, a bit dark. No, I don't think any of those are going to work. I think maybe just gold. We could go with the other Wow gold. What was it called? The Vegas. Where did I put it? Vegas gold. Possibly go with that. That is just a heat. Yeah, that is just an embossing powder. I'm going to go with this gold and possibly sprinkle a bit of this on when it's molten. But we're going to go back. I don't know if you saw any of that. I was a bit far out then, or zoomed in even. I'm going to go with this gold onto the numbers and then sprinkle a bit of this on while it's hot. And we're going to move this to one side because... Oh, I can just peel it off actually. It's still a bit warm though. Ooh, some of it's like sunken all the way through. I quite like that edge effect. I might leave it like that. I might cut it down. Not sure. Let's just try it on my favourite size of card. So it would still fit on there quite nicely. So I could leave it as it is, and that has not warped. So if you want to go thicker with your powders, go on to some kind of chipboard or grey board, and then that's going to work really nicely for you. Okay, so we're now actually going to go back to the old school method of, I think I need to have a clean piece of parchment, but we're going to go back to the old school method of using your clear sticky ink and your embossing powders to get these ones to go a colour, and we're going to use the heat tool for this as well. And then we're going to go back and try this one, and we might play around with this heart maybe in the brick or the, oh, I think was one that was called granite. Yeah, the granite's got red in it, so that might look cool for the heart. So we're going to have a play now. I just thought I probably don't actually need parchment paper. I usually just work on scrap paper when I'm doing this kind of thing. So I'm going to actually use the embossing dabber for this because it's going to give out more. Oh, I hadn't turned that off. It's going to turn itself off because it actually gives out more ink, and we're going to go with ultra thick powder. So hopefully this will stay wet long enough for us to put the gold onto. What's the matter, little one? You okay? I think she just heard me say we're going to play, and I think she thought I meant with her. I might have to stop and come back in a second. Right, so we're going to go with that. Ooh. Oh, that has stuck on nicely. That's really good. If you don't have an embossing dabber though, you can just use your clear sticky ink pads, whether that's a mini one or a full-sized one. Okay, I'm going to move that out of the way, and then I'm going to shifty this along here and put these over here so I can tip this back in the pot. If you've not seen this technique before, it's really, really easy to do. You're literally just adding your powder on, heating it, and then if you're really quick, you can dump more powder onto it. But if you're not quick, you just put more ink on and then put more powder over the top, so you don't have to rush, you don't have to be in a hurry. You can hurry it if you want to, but you don't have to be in a hurry, which is the nice thing. So, pumpkin, will you let me heat this first layer before we play? Okay? Yes? Good. I'll heat this and then I'll go and play with pumpkin and then I'll come back. I'm back now. So let's go with some more of the Dauber, because that has certainly cooled down now. It's definitely not going to take any more powder. So let's just cover this and we can do a second layer of the beautiful gold. It really looks like fool's gold. It's just like gorgeous little chunks. Put it on a different piece of paper. Okay, and then tip this back into the pot. This is kind of like a nice in-betweeny sort of powder, this one actually. It's not too thick of a granule. Well, you can't, I don't know if you can even see anything that I just did then. I've literally just dumped the powder back on, moved them to the side, and then I'll move them back again so you can see them. And then we'll just heat that again, see if it needs a third layer. If it doesn't, I might just sprinkle on a little bit of that Vegas gold. Did you just see that or not? Vegas gold. Let's see what that looks like. If I have this open, actually, I can show you how you... That keeps sticking back on again. I might as well just take that out. If I quickly heat this a little bit more again. While it's molten, you can actually dump more powder on, then you don't have to use more glue or, you know, sticky ink. You can do this with glue as well. I have done that in the past. It hasn't quite got all of the areas on this, but that will be plenty enough for a final layer on there. I'm just moving them off to one side so that I can pick this piece of paper up in a second and put it back in the pot, and then I'll bring them back into shot for you. Okay, and then pick them back up. As you can see, with this method, you obviously can't always completely heat the whole number completely back up again enough to be able to dump that on quickly for a third layer, but it gives enough on there. And I could just leave them beautiful solid gold like that, but I do really want to try some of this Vegas gold, so I'm going to have this off to the side. I've got a pinch in my fingers and I'm going to turn this back on and heat that up a little bit. Turn the heat tool off, sprinkle a bit of the Vegas gold. Some of it will instantly melt. It is a different gold. It's a whiter gold, I think. So I don't know how well you could see that. Actually, you can see that speckle from above. It's given like a little light speckling sort of effect to it. So I'm waiting till that cools before I touch them. And then we can see what they look like on top of the background that we did earlier. Are they cool yet? Oh, ow, that was not cool. Ouch. I'm going to heat that again. Okay, that was definitely not cool on that corner. Leave them to cool for longer than that. This has still stayed nice and flat as it's cooling down, which is great. So we could embed some bits into this. Do we want to? I think it might be quite nice to embed some pieces into this. I don't know if I might just be able to snap the edges off. see if we can get a nice smooth edge on it. I did like the messy effect, but I did quite like the wonky shape as well, so we're going to go with the wonky shape as the edge. All of these pieces I'm snapping off though. Oh, could you even see that? You can use these for another project as well. You could do what we did in the previous video and put them on your piece of card, melt them, and then like move them around as well and get the swirly kind of effect like we were doing with that rainbow card. That would look really cool with those little pieces. And you can just keep all of that in a pot as well. And if you're doing any like pouring into moulds and things, you can just melt all that down and it'll just create a generic yellowy, goldy kind of colour for you. Okay, they are cool now. So we can put those onto there. I might have them hanging off the edge a little bit, but that gives us some area up here where we could embed some of those crystals. Where did I put them? Over here. Some little crystals into there. Shame I haven't got a gold version of that silver, although that would look nice actually. Okay, we'll put some of that silver glass in there as well then. So I'm going to just, where am I going to put these pieces? Get a little bag. When you've got leftover pieces like this, you can just save them in a little Ziploc bag, and then you've got them for the next time you want to play. Okay, so, oh, they're still warm actually, those. So let's flip over. Oh, stuck with embossing powder onto something. Just tip that off. Flip, that's what was stuck. Flip that over. Okay, so we want to reheat some of these areas so that we can sprinkle some of these bits and pieces in. I'm going to have them open to the side and not put my heat tool anywhere near them so that I can pinch them and sprinkle them on in a second. They're actually melting. I don't think those little crystals are heat stable. I think they're actually melting into little spheres. I don't mind that though. They're just not faceted anymore. I kind of like that actually. Okay, so I've done that. This edge looks nice now because those bits have melted on there. So yeah, see, it's all come off the back there. What if I hold it in mid-air and heat the edges and see if we can get the rest of them to look nice and neat? So not 100% straight edges, but much neater than it was before. So I think that's going to work really nicely for the background of my mum's birthday card. I don't know if you can tell in that corner how some of them, those crystals, have just like turned into blobs. I don't mind that though, that they don't look much like crystals anymore, they look like blobs. But that glass, what's it called? Just silver glass, I think. I've lost the pot of it now. Oh, it's over there, silver glass. That has just sunken in really nicely. That doesn't melt at all. You can see that gorgeous speckling effect that we sprinkled on before as well. So I'm going to have that on the card, and then I'm going to put the numbers onto there and do something else with the background perhaps. But I just thought I'd show you a few elements that I'm going to use on some different bits and pieces. Even though I'm not finishing off the card in the video, it's quite nice to see little elements being made. So let's move this. And then we've got two more things that I wanted to do. So I wanted to try and make a stone heart. So we're going to go with this, and I think we're just going to use the clear embossing ink on this and just put it all over. And this is an MDF shape that we already tried to melt the powder onto with the mini heat press, but because this is a mixed powder, I think it's going to give the concrete look more if you're sprinkling it on and then heating it with an embossing tool. I think if you're melting it, it's all just homogenizing and then it's not giving you the concrete look that it's supposed to give, which is what I want. So we might have to do a couple of layers, but I think that's going to look really cool. I love it when different designers come up with different powders to make different effects, because sometimes you do really want something to look stone, and I mean, now you've got embossing powders that actually create that look for you, rather than you having to kind of mix something up yourself. It's quite nice to actually have powders that do that. So we'll heat this up. So in this case, it might have been better to start with a white based piece, base piece, like I was saying earlier, but because it is concrete, I don't think it's actually going to matter. When we put a second layer on there, I don't think it's going to matter that much. So I'm going to heat this again so it's hot and then sprinkle some more on. And what we can do with this as well, if we want it to have more of a raised look, like we hopefully would have gotten if we had used the LOKLiK mini heat press, we can actually just put some clear over the top and give it that kind of raised, enamelled resin kind of look to it as well. Okay, I think 2 layers is probably going to be enough, even though we might still see some of that brown through. I think it's still going to look really lovely. I hope you can see it melting. Try and hold it at an angle for you. I do think that gives a really cool stone effect. Though I think the brown adds to it. I do like it actually. I might try and neaten the edges, because we kind of made a mess of the edges, didn't we, when we were using the mini heat press. I don't know if that's actually melting it at all. Perhaps once we've done our actually before we do our final layer, let's hold it up in mid-air. Actually, it's kind of a matte powder, that is. It's giving, oh, I suppose concrete's matte, isn't it? That's why it's got a matte powder. Oops. Oh dear. Clean that edge. I'm not sure if I just messed up the front face of it though. A little bit. But it is concrete, so we can fix that in a minute. Okay, if I'm going to fix bits and pieces, I might as well hold this more securely and use one of these woodware crocodile clips. And then I can actually get into that middle bit there. Okay, that's much neater than it was now, and I think that really does look like concrete. I'm going to do one more layer on it just to make sure that we've got that gorgeous concrete effect on there, but I really like that. I'm glad I bought that set of embossing powders, because I feel like that's something maybe not everybody would want, but I think masculine cards as well it's going to be really good for. And a brick embossing folder with the brick powder on would look really good. Okay. This video's not quite been what I thought it was going to be, so hopefully, even though I've kind of just been going off on all sorts of random tangents with embossing powder, hopefully it's still been of use to you, if you've maybe not done some techniques like this before. So let's just heat that final layer of the concrete powder. Okay, there we go. We've got our stone heart. I thought it could be funny. You could do a kind of greeting that says something like you got a heart of stone or something. I thought that would be really nice to have a concrete heart. So I've got that ready for another project. And then I did want to do one more, but somebody's grizzling at me. If I move this off to the side, we will do one more, and we might have to put up with a little bit of pumpkin grizzling. So I wanted to do this little heart and do it with the granite. Where did I put that? Granite. Because the granite, I mean, I wouldn't say that that's granite to me. I kind of think granite is silver, black and white and grey. But this granite has got red in it, which I presume there's different types of granite. If I think of granite, I think of like the black, red and grey. But we shall see what this kind of looks like. I might speed this up, especially if pumpkin's going to grizzle. So I'm going to just use the same dabber layer of this, dabber layer of this, and then we'll see what it comes out like. Okay, now I'm seeing that melted, although difficult to show you. Oh, oh dear. Uh-oh. Oh no. That's given it a completely different effect now because I dropped it. But now I'm seeing that melted, it does actually look like granite. I don't know why it's so dark. I guess it's because the colour's so dark. I can't really show it on camera. I'll wait till it's cooled down, then I can show it to you better. But that is looking more like granite to me now. I have seen that sort of browny coloured granite before. Although where I've just touched it with the heat tool and it's touched there, it's got some grey kind of bits in there. So there must have been other colours in some of the granules that are in there. And then when I've disturbed them, the whitey sort of tones of the colours have come out. I think that's cool. So I can kind of, there. It's a very like red toned granite. Really pretty actually, I do really like that. So there we go, we've got a granite heart as well. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll bring a cleaner sheet of paper up to the front. I hope you've enjoyed seeing a few different experiments with embossing powders. It's not quite the video that I was hoping it was going to be, but we've kind of done a little topper for a card. We've done some numbers to go on a card as well. We've got our concrete heart, which has got that really cool matte finish to it. I do like the little bit of brown poking through underneath as well. But we could definitely put some more layers of clear over the... Oh, should we do that? Maybe we'll do that in a second. We can put some more layers of clear on that. And then what else have we done in this video? We've done the like resin paper. And this works really nicely. It's it doesn't crack, which is really cool. And you can staple through it. Or you can scrunch it up and give it a different effect as well, like I was showing you at the beginning of the video too. Is that everything we've done? We've got this little piece here. It's got like a partial of a concrete heart from where we were playing with the mini heat press. So we could have used that on something as well. I think that's all we've done in this video. Been going for ages, but I feel like we should have achieved more than we have. But anyway, hopefully those things are, you know, were interesting and everything. Let's just see if we can do a couple of layers of clear onto this to make it, I mean, I guess I like the matte look, but I feel like it should be more domed than this. So let's go, oh actually there's that other technique, isn't there? You can brush your embossing with wire wool to get it to be not shiny. Okay, the video is still going for a little bit longer then, whilst we heat emboss this with clear, ultra thick clear. I think I used most of mine from there, so I'll go on to the big pot. And then, once it's cool, we'll use the wire wool on it and see if we can get it to go back to a matte finish, because I've never actually tried that before. I've heard that you can do it, but I've never actually tried it. I've never gotten around to doing it. So, let's go with the clear embossing dabber ink onto here. Make sure this paper is clean so I don't contaminate my clear powder. And then we might need a couple of layers, or we might be able to get away with just one layer. I think I might leave the pot open just in case, because then we don't have to go with more ink. Okay, so let's heat this. So it has changed the look of the concrete effect a tiny bit. I still like it though, still looks like concrete, but it has just altered it a little bit because we put the clear on top of it. But I'm just going to get my wire wool whilst that's cooling off. And once it's totally cool, we can just take a little bit of wire wool and see if we can scratch up the surface of it to make it look matte again. I think it should work, but we shall see. So the wood's still a little bit warm, but the embossing powder has cooled now. I don't know if it will focus. So it is a really cool effect, and it has actually shown the wood through more now. It's like the concrete powder is like levitated up into the clear layer, but you can see how shiny that is now. I know what's going on about before. I like the shiny look rather than the matte, but because that concrete did have that matte finish to begin with, we can actually see if we can bring it back. I think it is making it matte. Yeah, I think that's working. See, that's a good experiment because I've never actually tried that before. Even though I've had the wire wool sitting there for over a year, I've still never actually got around to trying it. But it works. So, if you have something that was matte, you want to make it look a little bit more resin-like by adding clear on top, but then you still want it to be matte, you can take wire wool to it and you can make it matte again. So that's a pretty cool technique to end on. I'm going to fold that up carefully and put all of those tiny bits of wire wool in the bin. And then, I hope you enjoyed this video where we've done all those bits and pieces that I was just showing you earlier. We played around with that quad set of wow embossing powders from CRaFTi. We've played around with trying to get the same effects that we were doing in the previous video, but using it onto grey board so that we're not getting the cracking difficulty that we were having before, and it means you can make it thick enough that you can embed things into it as well, which is really cool. We were playing around with the granite. That does look really good actually. It's difficult to show, but a granite effect, which you could use the wire wool on that as well, and give that a dull effect too, like a really sand polished, I'm not sure what the word is, where it gives it that sort of more satin finish. You could do that, and yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Hopefully you might have learnt something from one of the different techniques that I've shown you, and if you would be interested in a part 3 looking at embossing powders, let me know what kind of things you'd be interested in, if you want me to show you something again in more detail, and if you do want to get hold of the LOKLiK mini heat press, which could be the HTVRONT branded version as well. They're both the same, they're just HTVRONT is the parent company of LOKLiK. You can use my affiliate links in the description box below that will take you to the HTVRONT website, and you can use the discount code Christine Smith, so CHRISTINE SMITH MITH. I'll put it on the screen here, and I'll put it in the description box below the video as well, and you can use that code to get 10% off anything that you order on the HTVRONT website, and they have some ridiculously good deals going on at the moment. Crazy things where you're buying the accessories and getting like the free cutting machine and things like that, and you can get 10% even if something is already on offer, so you can get an extra 10% off, which is fantastic. So please do take advantage of that if you want to get anything from HTVRONT. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!